scouting venues for a summit likely to happen this week with Russian President Vladimir Putin. South Korean President Moon Jae-in in Kazakhstan for a summit secures the remains of Korean independence fighters from that country. They're now back in Korea, where they'll be buried. And Korea's exports of semiconductors are down again, a fifth month of declines in March, this time by more than 16% compared to last year. It's 4 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us on our afternoon broadcast. I'm Devin Whiting. More clues coming out about where Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin will be meeting this week at their expected summit in Vladivostok. North Korean officials were in the city over the weekend checking out what appear to be the likely venues. Kim Yo-sun has the report.
Kim Jong-un's de facto chief of staff and protocol officer was spotted at a university campus in Russia's far eastern city of Vladivostok. A group of North Korean officials led by Chief Protocol Officer Kim Chang-sun toured various facilities at the far eastern Federal University on Russky Island of Vladivostok on Sunday. The campus is widely expected to be where Kim Jong-un will hold his first summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The North's delegation also included Kim Chol-gyu, a top official in charge of the leader's security, as well as Vice Foreign Minister Im Chun-il. The North Korean officials were also seen at a train station in Vladivostok last week, while they toured a theater over the weekend. The exact date of the Kim-Putin summit is not yet clear. However, development suggests it's highly likely to take place in Vladivostok either on Wednesday or Thursday before the Russian leader flies to China for the One Belt, One Road Forum. The summit will be the first between the leaders of the two countries in 8 years, when former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il met former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev in 2011. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
The U.S. team negotiating North Korea's denuclearization is reportedly frustrated by an apparent lack of communication with the regime. CNN cites multiple sources familiar with the situation who say despite Secretary of State Pompeo keeping his cool in public, he and the other American negotiators are discouraged by the stalemate. The report also said the Trump administration's point man on North Korea, Stephen Biegun, has made it clear that he would like to get back to the talks as soon as possible. South Korea's President Moon Jae-in is trying to do that too, but CNN sources say there haven't been any serious inter-Korean talks since the Hanoi summit broke down in late February. Now, President Moon Jae-in is in Kazakhstan on the third and final leg of his tour through Central Asia. And while there, a gesture important to the two countries' relationship and to Korean history. President Moon was able to send home the remains of patriots who fought for Korea's independence. Our correspondent Shin Se-min is traveling with the president.
Sending them home with dignity and honor. One by one, President Moon Jae-in pays silent military salute to the fallen independence fighters forced to move to Kazakhstan under the former Soviet Union.
독립운동가 한 분 한 분을 기억하는 것은 우리 스스로의 긍지와 자부심을 일깨우는 일입니다. 미래를 열어갈 힘을 키우는 일입니다.
He added Korea will continue efforts for bilateral development with Kazakhstan and the rest of Eurasia, saying it's the way to repay the efforts of our compatriots. The Moon administration is pushing to restore and bring back the remains of Korea's independence fighters as the country marks the 100th anniversary of both the establishment of the provisional government in exile on April 11th and the March 1st independence movement. President Moon's state visit to Kazakhstan also includes summits with President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev and the founding leader Nursultan Nazarbayev in the city of Nur-Sultan, formerly known as Astana. The two sides are expected to discuss the Kazakh model of denuclearization, which saw the country receive huge financial incentives for giving up its nuclear weapons. They will also discuss economic and trade cooperation. Bilateral trade between South Korea and Kazakhstan logged some $2.2 billion last year, making Kazakhstan Seoul's largest trading partner in Central Asia. President Moon becomes the first South Korean leader to bring such remains home from another country, and his message is clear. South Korea will take full responsibility for those who sacrificed their lives for the country.
And now, 4 independence fighters, including their spouses, can lay in rest on home soil once and for all. Shin Min, Arirang News, Nur Sultan.
And the remains of the 2 independence fighters arrived in Korea this morning, those of Kye Bong-woo, Hwang Eun-jung, and their respective spouses. They were received at Seoul Airport by South Korea's Minister of Patriots and Veterans Affairs, Pyu Jin. They'll be laid to rest at Seoul National Cemetery and Daejeon National Cemetery in accordance with their families' wishes. The remains of 3 others, including the legendary General Hong Bom-do, are yet to return. South Korea will continue to work with Kazakhstan to bring them back as soon as possible. An act of terrorism on Easter Day in Sri Lanka, where the death toll is rising. A series of coordinated blasts have killed nearly 300 people while injuring several hundred others. Recalling a violent history the island had hoped was behind it. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the latest.
At least 290 people have been confirmed dead and several hundred have been injured in the attacks on 8 locations, including churches and hotels in a number of different cities. Around 35 foreign nationals are among the dead, and the death toll is expected to rise. It's unclear who is behind the attacks, but around 13 people, all Sri Lankans, have been arrested in connection with the coordinated bombings.
Orders have been given to find those responsible for this. They'll be given all powers they want. We can't allow these kind of crimes to take place. We'll also look into the shortcomings. For the next few days, the important thing is to maintain peace.
The 6 initial explosions that took place at 3 churches and 3 hotels appeared timed to cause maximum casualties among worshippers attending Easter Sunday services and customers eating breakfast in the hotel's restaurants.
I heard the explosion and then the roof fell on us. We took the children and ran out from the rear door. But when I came to the hospital, I saw my brother-in-law and son on the ground.
The Sri Lankan government has declared a curfew in Colombo, the nation's capital where most of the bombings took place, and has blocked access to social media and messaging sites such as Facebook and WhatsApp. Several hours after the attacks, local security forces raided a house in Colombo, during which 3 officers died from suicide bomb explosions. Sunday's violence punctures a decade of relative peace in the country following the end of its civil war in 2009. Sri Lanka has since turned itself into a popular tourist destination. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
K-pop stars BTS have made music video history after the video for their song Boy With Love broke several world records for most YouTube views in a single day. Our Won Jung-hwan has more.
BTS's latest music video, Boy With Love, has broken several world records after it was viewed 74.6 million times on YouTube in its first 24 hours of its release. The Guinness World Records organization has confirmed that the South Korean boy band has broken 3 major records in total. The song, which was uploaded to YouTube on April 12th, broke the records for the most viewed YouTube video in 24 hours, most viewed YouTube music video in 24 hours, and most viewed YouTube music video in 24 hours by a K-pop group. That record had been held by girl group Blackpink, whose music video for Kill This Love was viewed 56.7 million times in one day on YouTube after its release earlier this month. As well as breaking records, BTS's latest album is topping music charts around the world. The album Map of Soul, Persona, is the group's 3rd #1 on the main US Billboard 200 album chart, making BTS the first group since the Beatles to have 3 #1 albums in less than a year. The band's first #1 came with Love Yourself Tear in June last year, before the following album, Love Yourself Answer, again conquered the chart in September. And BTS are topping charts on the other side of the Atlantic too, landing their first ever UK #1 album with their latest release, and becoming the first ever Korean artist to top the UK charts. BTS will resume their international stadium tour on May 4th at the Rose Bowl in Los Angeles. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
The Korean government is aiming to lower the speed limit in cities this year based on findings that not only do lower speed limits mean fewer accidents and deaths, they have very little impact on travel times. Park Se-young has this report.
In downtown Daegu, 3 taxis are headed to the same destination at different speeds, 70, 60, and 50 kilometers per hour. The difference in time it took to drive the 10-kilometer route ranged from just 20 seconds to 3 minutes. In fact, the Korea Transportation Safety Authority last year found that lowering the speed limit of urban roads by 10 kilometers per hour increases travel time by just 4.8% or about 2 minutes. More importantly, lowering the limit considerably reduces the number of severe accidents. According to a speed limit test carried out in 2 locations in Daegu from last July until March this year, the number of serious accidents dropped by 56% and 23% respectively. Other countries have already taken the measure to improve traffic safety. By lowering speed limits, Denmark saw a 24% reduction in the number of road deaths, while Australia and Hungary reported a 12% and 18% decrease respectively.
Pedestrians have an 85% chance of dying when hit by a car driving at 60 kilometers per hour. This probability drops by 30 percentage points to 55% for the speed of 50 kilometers per hour.
In 2018, speed limits were lowered in 160 sections in 10 cities, including Jeju, Jeonju, and Cheonan. Since April 17th this year, the speed limits of main roads in downtown Daegu have been lowered by 10 kilometers per hour. The Korean government is looking to continue its efforts to make streets safer by lowering the urban speed limit in more than 150 sections throughout the country in 2019. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
One of the vital sectors of the Korean economy is information and communications technology, but exports in that industry declined again last month, especially in memory chips. Kim Da-mi explains.
South Korea's ICT exports slipped once again in March, mainly due to sluggish overseas sales of the country's main export items, semiconductors, displays, and mobile phones. According to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Monday, a total of $15.9 billion of ICT products were exported last month, down 16.3% from a year earlier. This marks the 5th month in a row that ICT exports have fallen. The country's key export semiconductors declined by almost 17% on-year on the back of falling global prices and lower demand for system semiconductors. Falling global prices also hit exports of displays, LCD panels, and OLED panels. In addition, the stagnant global smartphone market meant mobile phone and phone parts exports continue to fall. Heated global competition, particularly from China, has also affected display and mobile phone exports. By region, ICT exports to China, including Hong Kong, dropped around 22%, with exports to Vietnam and the U.S. falling by 7% and around 5% respectively. However, sales to the EU increased by 0.5%. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Markets have closed in Korea on this Monday, and that means it's time to look at the week ahead on the global markets. And for that, we have on the line Dr. Hwang Se-eun, Research Fellow at the Korea Capital Markets Institute. Thanks for making time today, Dr. Hwang.
Good afternoon.
Now, stocks on Wall Street are sitting right on the edge of all-time highs, and this week we'll have U.S. GDP figures for the first quarter. What industries should we be watching, and what's the outlook there?
We need to pay more attention to a few blue-chip companies. Amazon, Boeing, Microsoft, and ExxonMobil are among more than 140 S&P 500 companies reporting quarterly results. 74% of the companies reporting so far have beaten expectations. Based on forecasts and actual reports, earnings for the S&P 500 as a whole are expected to decline 1.7%. The first negative quarter in 3 years. Some forecasters had projected an earnings decline of 4% or more. The equivalent of the economy's first quarter report card will be released Friday with the first reading of GDP. The outlook for first quarter growth has suddenly shifted upward after a series of better data releases later in the quarter. Surveys show economists' median forecast is now tracking at 2.4%, way above the 1% expected earlier in the quarter.
Yeah, we'll see how the markets respond to that later this week. Now, the Korean government has decided to submit its proposal for an extra budget to Parliament on the 25th. What effect has that budget, or will it have, on local stocks? The Kospi closing just about even today. And what else should be on our radars?
Okay, let me summarize the market movement today. First, Asian shares slipped on Monday, weighed down by the underperforming Chinese stocks. Japanese Nikkei gained just 0.08%, and South Korean stocks closed just a little higher Monday. The benchmark Kospi rose 0.02%, and Shanghai stock market declined 1.71%. Korean government is planning to introduce a supplementary budget worth less than 7 trillion won this coming Thursday to cope with fine dust and boost the slowing economy amid growing downside risks over worsening economic conditions at home and abroad. The government has projected the nation's economy to grow between 2.6% and 2.7% this year. The supplementary budget will be able to enhance the economic growth by about 0.2%, and this may have some positive impact on Korean stock markets. Also, U.S. trade talks with China could be important in the week ahead. With negotiations continuing and investors awaiting news of a summit between President Donald Trump and China President Xi Jinping, a few economic indicators such as Q1 real GDP growth and consumer sentiment, which will be released on Friday, are among what to watch for the week.
Yeah, as you say, the U.S. and China reportedly closing in on a deal. We also have the EU and the U.S. trading threats over airline subsidies. Now, markets in other regions haven't yet opened after a three-day weekend on Wall Street. But what are investors thinking on these issues?
The United States is threatening to impose tariffs on European goods worth billions of dollars, intensifying a long-running dispute over aircraft subsidies. The European Union is preparing retaliatory tariffs against the U.S. over subsidies to Boeing in return. This is significantly escalating transatlantic trade tensions. U.S.-China trade talks are progressing. The U.S. and China are locked in negotiations to end the 9-month trade war that has roiled markets and threatened global growth. The dispute has already shaken the world economy and caused companies to reconfigure their supply chains. Even amid rising expectations for an agreement, many economists warn that the global stock market still remain vulnerable to trade tensions and urged government to be very careful.
All right, got it, Dr. Huang. Thanks. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Now, Samsung Electronics has been listed as one of the world's top 50 companies using blockchain, the technology behind Bitcoin, of course. The Forbes Blockchain 50 list, released on Monday, lists the biggest companies leading the way in adopting blockchain systems. Forbes highlighted how Samsung uses blockchain in its user authentication system, eliminating the inconvenience of having to log in each time. An industry official said Samsung had introduced a blockchain key store application on smartphones and that Samsung affiliates are engaged in related R&D. According to market research firm IDC, global spending related to blockchain this year is expected to reach $2.9 billion. The Korea International Trade Association has signed a deal that could help smaller companies here sell more overseas. The MOU is with the World Federation of Overseas Korean Traders Association, which has a combined 7,000 members in 21 countries. According to the Trade Ministry in Seoul, this will help Korea's small and medium-sized companies find buyers and markets, and the association will serve as an export agency. The association will choose 20 companies this year and 100 by 2021 to help them become local trading firms. The ministry said the agreement will enable Korean SMEs to enter overseas markets more easily and create an extra $1.7 billion in exports. Now, most countries have some way of taxing wealth that's inherited, but in Korea, the heirs of big corporations pay the second highest rate in the OECD. There's been a debate recently about possibly lowering it. Cha Sang-mi has more.
The so-called silver spoon effect, a lifelong advantage given to children of affluent families, is something that's often looked down upon, particularly by people in Korea. Inheritance taxes levied on inherited property, money, or possessions has therefore been a thorny issue. South Korea's top rate of inheritance tax is 50%, the second highest in the OECD. This figure is well above the OECD average, and over 10 OECD members have no taxes at all on inheriting property. Experts say the gap is due to the recent scrapping or lowering of inheritance taxes in many OECD countries like the US and Germany. Small business owners have called for widened tax exemptions on SMEs, while many civic groups say the status quo should be maintained. One expert points out that the exemption criteria is too narrow.
Exemptions for business heirs only apply to an estate worth between 17.5 million to 44 million US dollars, and there are other strict requirements.
Mr. Im says a rate between 25 to 30% would be most appropriate, in consideration of the OECD average of 26%. And for companies to avoid any backlash regarding these exemptions, he said the savings should be recirculated for the benefit of society through donations or job creation. Regarding concerns that a high tax burden on estates is detrimental to businesses, Professor Park says it's a misconception.
It is misleading to say that there aren't many good companies here because of the high inheritance tax rate. Strong businesses are created first before issues on inheritance are ever dealt with.
Professor Park points out that the government should rather shift its focus on policies such as deregulation to allow firms to grow. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
Today, April 22nd, is Earth Day. It's a time to give extra thought to how we treat the environment and to do something to improve it. Over the past year, Korea has been trying to cut back on the use of plastic in the forms of things like bags and plastic cups. Kim Mo-gyun has this report.
Over the past few years, South Korea has been chosen as one of the countries with the highest plastic usage rate. To cope with the issue that has been a key aspect that threatens the environment, the government has been introducing various measures to control plastic emissions in the nation. Last August, the Environment Ministry announced measures to ban serving drinks in disposable plastic cups, with aims to reduce nearly half of the nation's annual 3 billion plastic cup consumption. Cafes that go against the rule will be fined up to $1,800. In line with the policy, the government also banned large stores from providing plastic bags this April. Some 2,000 large supermarkets, department stores, and shopping malls, as well as 11,000 grocery stores larger than 165 square meters, have been banned from handing out disposable plastic bags and instead are offering paper bags or shopping baskets. If they are found to have violated the rules, they could be fined over $2,600, depending on the number of times they have committed the same offense. The Environment Ministry says the latest policy could reduce the use of 2.2 billion plastic bags every year. Despite such efforts, it seems like the public still thinks more could be done. According to a survey held by the international environment organization Greenpeace Korea on more than 1,000 adults in the nation earlier this month, 9 out of 10 agreed on the seriousness of the plastic and garbage emissions of Korea and demanded a stronger regulation on disposable plastic usage. On the government's efforts to tackle such problem, 60% of the respondents said that the Environment Ministry is not doing well enough to tackle such problems, while only 5% said they are doing a good work. Kim Mo-gyun, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this broadcast. Thanks for being with us. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.
Daily news you need to know.
Breathing life into stories.